Unity has announced its first annual Unity for Humanity contest, an initiative with a focus on aims that inspire meaningful change. One developer will be awarded $25,000 in funding to help bring their project to fruition. This is a great opportunity for developers who feel as though their work could make an impact on others, and receive the added benefit of funding and mentorship as well. As explained in a blog post, eligible projects are those that are currently in development, but not yet completed. Projects must also demonstrate plans for distribution and be willing to submit a business to consumers at the event. In addition, a prototype or video demoing the project must be provided, along with a detailed pitch or treatment outlining the project details. It's worth noting that submitted projects must utilize Unity as the only 3D game engine software used during production. Interested developers can head here for the full list of contest terms and conditions. If they choose to submit their work, Halo Developer 343 Industries announced earlier today that it is partnering with Limitless Solutions, a non-profit providing prosthetic limbs for children, to offer Halo-themed, bionic prosthetics to young kids. This is yet another heartwarming example of studios collaborating with important organizations to help those in need, and it's always important to highlight the good work being done. The studio explained the partnership in a blog post, explaining how it was born from the desire to inspire and help others. There are, however, times where opportunities to inspire heroes and deliver wonder present. THAMACLBESTUTSIDETHE scope of game code, cutscene scripts, or sandbox balancing. The 3D printed Limitless bionic prosthetics are functional and cost-effective. Best of all, the non-profit organization donates their prosthetic arms completely free of charge to recipients and their families. As far where Halo comes in, beginning in 2019, Limitless will add 2 special Halo-themed options to their lineup of designs for their 3D printed bionic arms, with the first being a recreation of the Master Chief's own MKY armor. The entire post goes into more detail about the collaboration and the kind of work Limitless is doing, so be sure to read it there. Hold On is a premium-priced mobile brick breaker built upon the joy found in a single moment in the genre, the time when the ball sneaks behind the blocks and just goes wild, bashing away at them as the player watches. It's a game that encourages players get their ball bouncing between blocks as often as possible, savoring the chaos as the balls slam about. Gamasutra spoke with Martin Great Fact Johnson, developer of Hold On as well as other finely made indie games like Twofold Incorporated and Dream Capsule, to talk about how the appeal of this moment shaped the game's play style, how the game's design helps the player find order and strategy within those wild bounces, and designing stages that would make this kind of moment happen often. In Johnson's words, per usual, it's a mishmash of ideas from all over. But the initial seed came from playing another game that uses a similar mechanic. Aim a stream of balls at a bunch of blocks, break them, do it again. That particular game felt like a missed opportunity, so I quickly threw together my own prototype to try out some ideas I had. There's this mysterious, universal appeal to watching a bunch of balls bounce around that just made it work really well. Basically, it became about distilling that bit in more traditional brick breakers, i.e., breakout, where you sneak a ball in above all the bricks, and it just goes wild. I cannot claim to really understand it, but the bouncing is hypnotic. With Hold On, It became a challenge to balance the inherent chaos of 50 balls bouncing around with some type of order and hierarchy to what was and was not important. There's a lot going on once the bouncing starts, so I was fairly restrictive with effects and such, mostly using them to convey important changes on events. This is related to the layout of the generation of levels. I realized it would be a good incentive for deep shots if the blocks actually rested on each other. So removing blocks lower in the playfield would make it messy. This basically required the game to have you shoot down. I did try upside down gravity along with shooting up, because that configuration is less prone to the common mobile issue of hiding the thing you are aiming at with your finger. However, that upside down mode was incredibly confusing, so firing down it was. The stages are all procedurally generated, but somehow, I got quite lucky with the way they are generated and ended up with a setup that was easy to tweak to make levels that strike a good balance between difficulty and fun shots. Early in prototyping, it became obvious that the most fun shots were when you managed to get your balls in a small pocket and they bounce around wildly. These types of setups were originally somewhat rare to happen upon, but once I realized I could do the rounded corners, it all fell into place. They open up the playfield much more, and in combination with the larger Tetrimino-style blocks, it just works really well. Looks nice too. That balance is all down to tweaking the way the levels are generated. Luckily, I have many knots I can tweak for that. I can adjust how many blocks are filled, how big the blocks are, how many blocks are stuck in the wall, and perhaps most importantly, their hit points. All of these things were adjusted over months of testing alongside working on the game. Early on, I had an idea that the player would amass diamonds as they were digging, just like now. But instead of keeping them all as the round ends, you do lose them unless you build early to save your work. I had these checkpoints every so often where you could opt to escape to the surface, but no one ever did. They just wanted to keep digging. I tried adjusting things, but could never get it to really feel like an interesting choice. It either felt like digging was the best option, or it just felt overly mean. I did not like having to cut that idea. I somehow still really like it, but in the end, it did not work no matter how much of a darling it was. This game was the first time I worked with a concept artist. The original plan was to try to take the visuals away from my comfortable old style and some weird mood, but I guess time constraints and just regular old convenience brought me back to my usual style. That style is very much a function of being a one-person studio. It's a kind of minimalism forced by time constraints. In most creative endeavors, it seems to me that the more you cut, the better it gets. This gets extra important when you are a small studio. I can add all the features I want, but if I spread myself too thin it'll be for nothing. Hence, I try to keep things as small and tight as I can and then polish them to look and feel as good as I possibly can. I am sure that would be much different if I had a larger team. Constraints are an excellent thing to have, as it's incredibly hard to try and do something when it can be anything. A couple of small limitations go a long way to get me inspired. For sure, early prototypes were just about playing a single, long game with limited shots and limited depth. This ended up creating very long, drawn-out runs. I had testers who got really into it that could maintain a game for days. This is all great, until you lose. I wanted to encourage shorter sort of adaptive runs of play, not those marathon runs. Hence, I added a few things that would keep Thrones from going on far too long. I am of two minds about the upgrade system. I do enjoy a good upgrade, but I also feel that I did not have time to take it quite as far as I would have liked to. I did consider having various single-use items and other things, but it ended up adding too much complexity, and that was not a trade-off I liked. The idea with the upgrades was to create a sense of progress. The way they unlock is also built so skilled players can unlock them at a regular pace. But even a less adept player will get them at given time. I had ideas for a wider variety of upgrades, like single-use bombs and others, but they were all cut due to disturbing the simplicity of the game's controls.